Hello, newer Mika players, and that one guy in Discord specifically. Um, so I'm going to do a little bit of overview of like beginner Mika stuff, and hopefully this doesn't take too long. I'll try to be quick with it. But in general, sorry, force a habit going to network. Mika is a kind of like a rushdown and mix character. Her buttons aren't very big, which you'll kind of notice is pretty stubby. And she pretty much excels at, if you want to play the game correctly, doing strike throw. So stuff like, a lot of times you'll be in situations where you're just kind of like threatening throw with 5A. You can do maybe some OS crushes, but that's more advanced. Anyways, so a lot of times you'll be trying to find a way into each character because they'll have bigger buttons than you. So a good place to start, in my own opinion, is in the mission mode. I think I can actually go, not mission, tutorial mode. And this is going to be, in my personal opinion, the most important thing when you're trying to get into Mika. And this is what we call the dash blocking, right? So you're going to be, wait, I messed up. You're going to be trying to get in, and dash blocking is the most reliable. Now, I use personally the dash macro, which is AB, in order to dash block. It's much easier this way. Anyways, I can do that not under pressure, I swear. Let's see. Another example of trying to get in on people, which is going to be kind of your main goal, is say, this is just a scenario, but with punishing and kind of knowing ranges. So let's set this Yuzu to do a Bebapto, right? Which is just a move that has a lot of recovery, right? You'll get used to these kind of moves and you'll recognize them. Just as an example, you're going to be looking kind of for the whiff punishes and like look at your spacing and then notice areas where you can actually punish people. So just one instance. Let's see. Next, let's talk about some strong buttons. So Mika is a 5 frame on both her A buttons. 2A is low, and these buttons obviously excel when you're in. And it's kind of like, I mean, you could play Mika just going like this, throwing the whole time, or, you know, like mix it up with some lows. So it's just good to know that he has tied with probably the best buttons in normals in regard to frame data. It can be stubby, like this, stubby. This is even more stubby. So you just gotta be aware of your spacing. Okay, let's see. 5B, 2B, 5B is a 7 frame, kind of long range. This is kind of I feel like a footsie button. So say if you're like kind of scouting for them to mash, you can 5B. And it's kind of like a good check button, right? If someone is dashing at you, 5B is a good check button. 2B is another good button. And it's a 6 frame low with some. Alright. So a lot of times you'll have some kind of string, let's say, where you're going to be 2Aing. And most of the time, or a lot of time, 2B is a good follow-up. This leaves you at -3. And a lot of people don't know that until you get to higher levels where people might do like a micro walk back and then punish you with that. But 5B, just know it's a good 6 frame button that is got some pretty decent range. And even doing like this over and over is not the worst thing. It's just generally a good button. Next, let's talk about everyone's favorite, 6B. Now this used to be a mid and then a low, but it got changed to a 2 hits of low. So this is a very good button also just to get in and kind of whip punishing. You do have to be careful about people jumping over this now, and people are usually aware that this is a button that if Mika's at this range, like, yeah, someone switches. But the main thing about this button is that you can kind of freeform into a lot of different things. So like 2FF, FF, 22X, 214X, catching green shield if people are starting to green shield. You can also extend your pressure with 2, 6, what's about it? 236, B3. Like that will leave you 0. You can even get low now. Yeah, you get that. Yeah, you get that. Yeah. We'll get it. You can get it to 2+2. That's what I'm saying. So another strong button is this NATO, which is a 7-frame. Has some head involved in it. And it can also Rekka into you need to. Most likely, you're going to do this. But it's a good matching button, and it will get people off trying to do like anything that has head property. And you can combo with either Pocket or CS. Alright. So I think it's important to know, I think Mika's pressure in general is pretty freeform. Personally, I don't have too many known strings, I guess. I just know where I should be ending. So, for instance, Mika has one of the best rebeat buttons in the game, in the sense that you're +7 after a rebeat from 5 charge C. And that can lead to some frame traps with 6B, 623A, and I even believe 22A or 22B that will frame trap. So just know this is a good ender if you don't really know what to do next. This is kind of the safe ender, I suppose. And you can look for, some people will try to mash here, and so you got the space, they mash, and you can probably whiff punish with like a 6B or something. Okay. So, other than that, you get strings, or like, this is natural, frame trap. If they try to mash during this, I'll take a hit with it. 5B to 2A. And then another kind of like safe ender if you don't really know what to do is just sending this to 6B 3. And that can see get it +2. Can leave you plus. Okay. So moving on, I want to talk about do some example combos. So you can get these from the combo doc that is in the Discord, but I'll just do some of the things I use. So let's say if you hit A starter button or A starter. Oh gosh. Okay. So that was just one I personally use. I know there's a couple starters out there, but I think this is one of the more common ones. So I'll put it notation at the bottom of this. but just know that once you get to this, I'm holding up, and then holding up after this, and then immediately charging my JC, and immediately cancel with JB. And that will always give you that right above the ground NATO, and you'll see it in a lot. I just want to kind of show that. Okay, so that could be the 5A, A starter, and do a 5B starter. So this is a little bit more damage. And again, I think there are some better ones out there, but this is the one I use just because it's so stable, I suppose. Okay. Important things from this one, just getting this. It's timing down. So notice there that since I use the same denormal, you won't have enough duration or hit stun to do the JC again. So if you're wondering why you might be dropping this combo, it's probably because you're using the same key button in the combo. There and there, I'd be using the same one. As opposed to this stuff and now this one. Okay. I'll notation again at the bottom, but 6B. So this is, there's a lot of situations where you're going to hit a 6B. And it's important to know how to pick up off this. So one way is this, and this might teach you a little bit about kind of like double NATOs, because I'll get into this a little bit later, but double NATO running is pretty important to a lot like a freestyle. But for now, just know that 6 is combo, good starter combo. And I think the most important thing here is just getting the falling A NATO there at the right timing, and then you'll kind of be able to get it. If you're if they're able to tech up like after that first A NATO, that probably means that you're doing it too high from the ground. So for instance, like, okay, it's really hard for me not to muscle memory this. Something like that, right? That is a very exaggerated showing there, but just in general, be careful about like where your nadirs are starting, and that's why the 3D is okay. So let's do. Alright, let's talk about Enders. So there's a lot of things for. I don't want to. So let me get this. Let me get save state here. Let's go. So a lot of times, I think standard Enders are going to be just kind of like JC into JFF, charge JFF into 2, 3, 50. So I think this is probably the most standard Ender she has. And then again, there's a lot of things you can do from here. 214X is a good way to kind of set you up into safety with IW. You can just go into that like that. So there's a lot of things. Just know the linkage of JC into JFF opens you up to a lot of things. And of course you can kind of open to doing some EX Enders at the end of this. Missile. Stuff like that. Sorry, I'm in a funny mood, but let's see. And then I think another good one, is this 360 Ender. So I think this is probably the most stable, like, kill Ender for Mika. It doesn't lead to really anything else, but it gives you grid as well if you're in disadvantage. It just is very, very stable compared to like. That's pretty stable as well, but you'll come into situations where you want to use this 360. Anyways, and then the easiest wall is this Steer Ender, which is just AB, and that allows you to pretty much freely go into IW. And maybe some other funny stuff, but I don't really want to get too much into that. Okay, theory-wise, let's see. So I already talked about it before, but if you are able to get someone, you might be kind of like freestyling something, right? And you don't know how to end. Just know that if you're ever in like this situation of JA, and you'll get used to the curation left. So say you might not have enough curation to do the part JC, and in that case you practice combo and you're wondering why the J's part G is not hitting. You might just have to do an ender where you go straight in JA into JFF. Okay. Let's see, something else. Okay, yeah, a lot of common situations will be, sometimes you'll be picking up a combo. Now, this loader ground NATO is going to be something you'll probably run into more times than wise, but if you're ever in this situation, it's pretty important to know like how to pick up, right? So I would practice. Now there's some new stuff, right? I know other Mikas have been doing since the 5C has been buffed, but say you're going for a part JT, misses, you're wondering how to pick up, right? My favorite thing to do is usually 3B, but if they're too high, then 5C definitely is a good option. But mainly, I think showing that it's something that will happen and to be aware of, and it's something to practice if you want to get really comfortable with the character. And then, okay, so I want to talk about what I see as like the stabilizer. There might be some combos where you're not really sure or like how they hit, right? 5E is a good button to kind of like be able to, let's say you did this, right? 5B, right? Sometimes they go to the other side. Oh my god. So 5E is just kind of a good button to throw out there if you're looking to stabilize, in my own opinion. Another good one is just like, if you're able to get someone into, say you hit this kind of randomly, 214 X is a very good stabilization button early in the combo. If you are doing too much, say, like this. Oh wait, no, I have vocal. You won't have enough duration to continue combo. So let's say this. But since I have vocal, anyways, 214X, good at the start. 5B is kind of just feels like a really good stabilization tool. JAA, also a very good stabilization tool, because you can always lead into JFF. So you can always just prolong combos. And it's kind of a feel for it, but you'll get used to it. Okay, so another is the double NATO. And I've talked about this a little bit. There'll be a lot of situations, so for instance this double NATO you'll be using in kind of just randomly. It kind of just pops up in combos and is a pretty good damage value no matter what you do. So if you're ever like confused about what to do in combo, and it's a pretty good starter, right? You can always just do the double NATO and you'll get a lot when you're kind of freestyling, right? Which is the A version first, 3B, and then B version. Okay, so, right, adding this in post as well, something that's really important as a Mika player, is this corner steal. So the timing you'll kind of get used to. Say even if the opponent is grid broken, this becomes grid broken and no meter, and this becomes a 50-50, where you can either stay on the same side or take the side, but the timing is same as well. So I really recommend getting used to this. Yep. So, next, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what I think is the strongest thing about this character is the Mixups. Just to show a couple. Say you're using 2FF and then a string, or 2B compressor or low crush. You can always look for something to go over. Now there are some characters that were kind of like too big to where this might not work. So for instance, like Waldstein, you're going to hit them because they're so tall. But the other things that might work, and I think this is good, like beginner concept, is this NATO into kind of mix up. And this kind of gets you ready to get into the funny stuff, right? You want to be a really good Mika player. You want to get really comfortable. You're probably going to have to get used to kind of steering. And there's a reason why there's a Mika steer mode. It's just like, you will have to get used to the steering. And yeah, funny stuff. So I think practicing the NATO into EX is a good way to start, to getting like used to the Mika mix, right? Okay. So we've talked a little bit about the offensive options and kind of like the buttons neutral. I don't want to talk about some like defensive options. Let's see. Start directly here. So, a good thing to know is that Mika does have, so let's do that right, where it's a frame trap. Oops. I'm too fast. I'm too fast again. Am I stupid? Alright, let's say someone is pressuring you. Let's just say someone is pressuring you. And you want to get out, right? You have your lucky invincible reversal. It's the EX version of PP. Or not. Let's see. 5A mash is always good. Say for, let's see if I can. Let's say Hyde is going in for some pressure and wants to dash in, right? Right. 5A is a really good 5-frame button to kind of like predict that he's going to dash in. Yeah, so 5A is a good match button if you think they're going to be indeed into dash or dashing, and you'll kind of have to get used to what your opponent is doing. But I do recommend just observing, defensively observing pretty early. Next, 236A is a really good 7-frame get involved. So let's take over Hyde again. So let's say Hyde is trying to jump in on you, right? Now that's not a good example of what Hyde's going to do, but other characters do that, right? And this 236A on defense is really good because it has hidden ball. Okay, so next, there is something called a 3-cab. So say if you want to defend against field or throw. Correctly moving. Right. Oh. Going too quick. There we go. The whole idea of this OS is that you're speed linking into AD, which is throw. So a lot of times people run up and salt. So let's make height of that. Alright. So to block against both, you have this 3-cab. Right? And they're usually pressing a button. So you'll get a counter off of it. But I think it's just safe to jump after it. And you can easy control in J, which is a stabilizer. Okay. Let's see. Next. Alright, so post CS. I think EX missile just alone is 5 frames active. So it's pretty much a 5-frame match, right? It will beat Pro, it's low in volume, and it's honestly like a really, really strong post CS. It will beat pretty much everything and trade with 5 frames. Now, for instance, Hyde is a 2A 5 frame. Yes, I am pretty sure of that. So say in this situation we're right next to each other and there's post CS. The only button 5 frame they can they can hit is that 5 frame low, and since EX Missile crushes that low, it's pretty strong. I suppose they can also BDP or ADP, but that's kind of like maybe further in the lair. I don't think. Highs are pretty crazy. Anyways, alright, so other defensive option. So say if, let's say this hide wants to reset pressure. Sorry, I'm really bad at that pressure. With 2-2 or a projectile. Yeah, whatever. Explanation, right? You can see this. 2-2x. Honestly, 2-2a might be, but just know that if you're kind of getting comfortable with like how they're playing, and you see that they're trying to reset pressure a lot with a projectile, 2-2x post CS or even without CS, if you're feeling like you have a good feeling of their pressure, it's a good option. Because they had a change last patch where before this would trade with the ending parts of that would trade with it, and it was pretty bad. But now they made it so it's actually reliable. Want to push it out? And then, yeah, that's pretty much for the, I think, a good start for where a new Mika player. I know there's some information overload, but I'll try to split it up. So maybe it's a little bit more diversified. But yeah, I think in closing, because a very interesting character in terms of like Mixup and what you can do, and it's very cool. And that's why I play characters. I like doing Mixups. And I think just kind of experiment a lot. And it'll be fun. So, it's fun. That's it. Okay, I just want to also mention some common points for maybe Mika players. And I think some of the main ones are your missile getting shielded. Right? So there'll be some situations where a missile gets shielded. And unfortunately you are unable to do anything out of this. So like anytime you see yourself getting shielded, it's not a good idea to it's not a good idea to mention. So that is something just to kind of look for. There are situations where, or based on height, you do a down missile, it can be, or it can be plus. Their crouch, yeah, it can be plus. I can't really go through all of them, but there's, just know that EX missile can be plus, depending on height and where you hit them with your EX missile. Yeah. Another kind of thing we might want to be aware of is the 5EB button. So, this button you'll hear a lot from your veteran Mika players. It's pretty bad. It is a frame trap. However, this second portion, this is completely a projectile, and doesn't really have that great of a hitbox. So let's do this for instance. Right. That. Even stuff like. Yeah, so 5e in itself is a good button, but 5e there's a lot of times where you're gonna get punched for it, right? This is just to illustrate a few. It's pretty. It is just pretty bad, and know that there's. If you're wondering why you do a 5dB and then get hit to it, just know the hitbox is pretty bad. And people can just show it. Okay, I'll get it. I'll show this button as well. Oh god. Okay, yeah, checked out there. There are some. Okay, so there are some things I like about 5dB, which is kind of unconventional. For instance, I'll just is that it uses projectiles and allows you to cancel and everything. I implore you to find out stuff yourself, because it can be used as an approach option or something kind of a little unconditional. So, anyways, other O. Let's put this back to you. Let's say hide. No reason, I just hate hide. Let's put this to delay technique. Alright, so one thing you might notice that you just like to do is a lot of fun. Okay? Now, delay teching is pretty effective against a lot of these funny setups. So for instance, directly right, that's a delay tech. Looking for delay tech. But faster, like delay tech. And there's a lot of situations where I say like quite often where say delay tech is strong. So just be aware if you're doing some kind of setup that you found, just try to find answers to delay techs. Don't only be practicing stuff to one tech. Okay. And that, yeah, that pretty much is it.